Okay, hi, we're crooked. So throughout November, I have read a grand total of 9 books, and these range from romances to mysteries. Let's get started. Start off with the ones on my Kindle. So I read 3 on my Kindle this month. King of Greed, I rated a 4.5 star, and this is the 3rd book in the Kings of Sin series, which is a spin-off from the Twisted series. I really enjoyed this book. So this book followed our main 2 characters, which were Alessandra and Dominic, and they are married, and the spark has fizzled, and Dominic is so into his work that I don't want to say neglects Alessandra, but she doesn't feel like she's the main priority with him at all, and he has to win her back basically. And the whole book is him groveling and trying to show her that she is the one for him and the person that he loves. And the groveling was honestly perfect. He was trying to recreate things that were like their first time, or like a first date again, and all that stuff, and it was so romantic and I loved it. Things I loved about this book was Alessandra's character was so strong, and she was so strong with herself and saying, I deserve more. Dominic was so adamant that he was going to win her back because she is the one for him. She's the only one for him. I also loved the little cameo of Josh and Jules in this book. I just thought it was a sweet little moment. However, the thing that kept this book from being a 4.75 for me was the brother. So loads of people are obsessed with the brother in this book and saying that he was like everything and they want a book on the brother. I personally am indifferent to that. I don't care. The second book I read on my Kindle was one that was so anticipated for me. I read this and King of Greed in a anticipated reads video. The second book was The Things We Left Behind by Lucy Score. I love this book, and it's such a unpopular opinion, I think, for people to say they love this book. So many people said they were let down considering that the second book was amazing, and they said that this book was just not it. Personally, this was everything for me in a book, and I loved it. So this book, we followed the main 2 characters were Sloane and Lucian, who we've seen throughout the Knock 'Em Out series in Things We Never Got Over and Things We Hide from the Light. And Lucian and Sloane are childhood friends to enemies. They had a very sweet childhood past, with Lucian's character being this basically A-star student, a jock, and he's brilliant. He's not anything like he is now, and he wasn't seen as this dark character. He was seen as, you know, a really nice guy. And we see this heartbreaking past that Lucian has always had, and how much Sloane used to care for him because they used to be friends. See how that all happened and why Sloane and Lucian's relationship really took a turn for the worst. It was definitely a slow burn. It took a long time for the characters to even consider kissing or anything, or even consider acknowledging one another. And I personally thought that was so fitting for the book. So many people complained about it and said that it should have happened quicker. I disagree, because Lucian and Sloane's relationship is so complex. Their relationship is incredibly complex. They have hated each other for a certain reason, and this hatred goes deep. It would have made sense if they would have just instantly become, you know, lovers again. Like, it would never have made sense if they all of a sudden were like friends again, lovers. Like, it wouldn't have worked, and it would have felt too rushed. It was an amazing closing to the whole series. We saw a flash forward, like the epilogue, and it was brilliant. It had basically what the future holds for them all. Children growing up, and they're all older, like in their 50s and stuff. And honestly, I got really emotional, started crying. It was a really good book. I also enjoyed how much the family were involved in this book. I feel like this book and The Things We Hide from the Light both included the family so much, and I just appreciated that so much on so many levels. Rating for The Things We Left Behind was a 5 star. By a Thread by Lucy Score was the 3rd book I read on my Kindle, and I gave this book a 5 star. When Destiny Sidwell said that she enjoyed this book and she gave it a really high rating, it might have been a 5 star, I thought, this book's just like a romance. Nobody talks about it though, so how is this gonna be a 5 star? I was blown out the water with this book. This book was a workplace romance, and it was rivals / enemies to lovers, and I'd like to say he fell first. No, she fell first. No. He fell first, and he felt harder. That makes no sense. He fell for her first, and he fell harder for her. This book was so wholesome. Followed our 2 main characters, and I don't even remember their names. That's insane. Okay, can't remember. So we've got our billionaire businessman who is in charge of this fashion company because his dad messed it up and got in trouble with the company with his mum, and they're trying to get it back on the right track and get it a better name for itself than what it had, with everybody finding out about what the dad did. We have our main girl character who works in a pizza shop at the start, and she needs money. She doesn't have enough money. She's trying to pay for her dad's retirement home fund, and she's also trying to pay for the house she's living in, also trying to sell it off so she has the money from that, also trying to make the house better because she's trying to sell it and it looks a tip. So she's trying to do all that. She's trying to do everything. She's trying to be Wonder Woman. And she meets our main character. He gets her fired by having an altercation with her, and her boss ends up firing her, and she's headstrong and she's not gonna back down to this guy, and she ends up getting fired, as I've said, and ends up working for his company when his mum takes pity on her and offers her a job after she gets fired. Two characters have this chemistry, this spark between them where they're so annoyed with each other after what happened in the pizza shop, and their chemistry is everything. There is so many aspects of family in this, where we see how close she is with her dad and how he is not well and she wants to just look after him, but she's got no money to do this. There is the ups and downs of these two people, and you see how he can't trust people because he says so many people use him just for his name or for the status, the fame. So he struggles to trust people, which is completely understandable. Basically see their relationship grow from nothing to everything, and it's just beautiful. It's such a wholesome ending to this book as well. There were so many links to the start of the book. Felt like the links to the start of the book, considering this book was like 600 pages long, I just felt like was so beautiful. The fact that they were remembering these links at the start and bringing them up at the end, I just felt was everything, and I thoroughly enjoyed it and would definitely read it again. 5 stars. Now we move on to our physical books. They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. This book I gave a 5 star again. There's a lot of 5 stars this month, I'm just gonna warn you. And this book ruined me. So this book is about these two characters called Rufus and Mateo, and they are both called on this death cast, which tells you that you're gonna die today, basically. It doesn't tell you the time, but it tells you it's gonna be today. And these two people meet on this friend website, which is where people who are going to die today meet, and they can talk to each other, and they decide they're going to make the most of today and do everything they want to do. Mateo is such a nervous person, and he just doesn't put himself out there ever. He's hiding in his house because he's scared of how he's going to die, whereas Rufus is just a wild card. He just goes off like a firecracker, does what he wants. And so Rufus is trying to bring Mateo's adventurous side out. I was a mess, and the thing about this book is it's a book also about two boys falling in love with each other, but having that be that horrible ending that you know is going to happen where they both die. It's the constant fear of when is it going to happen, how long do these two have left, and I was a mess throughout. You see them go through so many different places, train trips, teaching each other things. I was a mess. Honestly, I was a complete and utter mess. Why did I do that? I just read the end of the book again. I only read like literally a couple sentences. It was brilliant basically, and I even just read literally 2 sentences and I'm a wreck again. This book was brilliant, and these two characters really fell for each other and loved each other, and just the whole story between them is just brilliant, and it's everything. The next book I'm going to talk about is the second book in that series, so it's a duology. Yeah, a duology I think, and this is The First to Die at the End by Adam Silvera. This book was more of a bittersweet ending to me, and this book does make me happy in a way. So in this book we follow Orion and Valentino, and one of them is told that they're gonna die, and it's the start of Deathcast. It's a prequel to the first book, and one of them's gonna die today and we don't know which one, and you find out which one, and the boys decide they're gonna spend the day together so that they can show each other around this town. So Orion's gonna show Valentino around the town, he's gonna experience it, and they're just going to spend as much of the day together as they can because they really like each other, and watching them fall for each other and basically spend the day as boyfriends, and it's honestly beautiful. We get perspectives from other people like we did in the first one. We got perspectives from different people. I really liked this book. It was really good. I did like it. I didn't like it as much as the first book, but it was still a 5-star for me. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and I was just shocked throughout it. It was a brilliant book and I really loved it. Loved the nods to the first book as well, and I just love the links that you'll see when you read this book. It was really good, and I would recommend. Really good book, and you see them exploring New York and coming to terms with things that happened in the past, and they basically want to make loads of firsts with each other, like first time together, seeing this, doing this, watching that, so loads of things like that. And it's just by chance that they meet each other, which I just adored. Next we have The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and this book I really liked. This book I gave a 4-star, which you might think that's quite low actually, but it's not. I really enjoyed it still. It's a mystery book, and we follow our main character who is called Avery, and Avery got given a inheritance from someone she's never met, and it's all of his assets basically, all his money, most of it, and his houses, his work branches that he has. Basically his will is all dedicated to her, but she doesn't know who he is. She's never met him before. There are so many puzzles and clues. Her brothers, who are this guy's grandchildren, and they're all trying to figure out who Avery is and trying to figure out what's so special about Avery. She doesn't come from money, she comes from nothing. There's also a little love triangle in here, and I did like it as well. But yeah, I did enjoy it. I definitely think that there's so much further that this book's gonna go, this book series. I actually bought the rest of the series, and I've heard that the second book is amazing. So yeah, it's a very good starter to the series, but I definitely think that it could have been bigger, but that's obviously gonna happen as you go through the series, because there's 3 more books in this book series. The next book is Terms and Conditions. That's a plan. The next book is Terms and Conditions by Lauren Asher. I liked this book a lot. So this book was a 4.75 for me. This is a part of the Dreamland Billionaire series. So this book, we follow the main characters Declan and Iris, and I love these characters. Iris is Declan's assistant and she works for him, and she's been working at trying to find him a bride, somebody who can sign a contract and just become his wife. The reason for this is that we'll find out in the first one, which is the fine print, that Declan's grandfather, in his will, the only way that these boys could get their percentage of the company was to do what he says in the will. So Declan's thing in the will is he has to get married and have a child, and then he will get his will and get his percentage of the company. Iris's plan to basically get him somebody to marry backfires, and she ends up marrying him herself, taking him onto the team and trying to help him out because she really appreciates him and she thinks he's a great friend and boss, and she doesn't want him to have to give up his inheritance to his dad. I really enjoyed this book. So the tropes in this were workplace romance, marriage of convenience. You've got Iris, who is this bubbly person, and she's a plant lover. She has come from hard things in life, and she's always thought that love maybe isn't for her because her mum and her dad's relationship were not great when she was a child, and growing up watching that wasn't great for her. I honestly really loved Declan's character. His character was just such a sweetheart. He is such like an uptight, cold-hearted person, but he is really warm-hearted inside. So another trope in this book was he fell first, and they both like each other from the start. You can see that very clearly. He fell first for her and he fell harder for her, which it was everything, and I love that trope. These characters are just so sweet, and I just thought their dynamic was brilliant. You just see them go through so many hardships and they work with each other so well. And the groveling man, I love the groveling, it was brilliant on Declan's behalf. I just thought that it was really good, really solid. In this book, he also does something that I love, and that is like helps with her medical stuff. So she is dyslexic in this book, and there's a big section on how he like educated himself without her knowing, and that part of the book honestly just like it gave it an extra 0.25 for me. I really loved it. The next book was the final book in the Dreamland Billionaire series, and this is Final Offer by Lauren Asher again. So this book we followed Callahan and Alana, and this book was childhood friends to lovers. I'm just reading my book down here with all the information. Childhood friends to lovers, second chance romance. So this book there is a big section, well, throughout the book, Callahan struggles with substance abuse and alcohol abuse, basically. So just want to forewarn you with that. Callahan and Alana used to be together when they were kids, and Callahan messed it all up basically when he spiraled after he started taking drugs again and drinking again. And this is years later. In his will, it says that he has to spend one summer living at the lakes in this house, the house that Alana owns. His grandfather's way of one last hurrah of trying to see if he can get these two lovebirds back together. And it was really sweet. There's a child in this who Alana's looking after, and you find out about all that. And I loved the child's relationship with Declan? No, with Callahan. I thought that was really sweet, and I like that dynamic. Callahan's struggle with his substance abuse around people because he struggles in social situations with social anxiety was really horrible to watch. It was hard to watch, but it was understandable, like it made sense. I personally loved this until we got to the last third. I felt like a certain thing happened in this book, but it was too rushed for my liking. I felt like it should have lasted longer, and I also felt like the ending I wasn't massively keen on. I was just a bit like, okay. So I did give this book a 4. I wish I could have given it higher. I just really didn't like it, and that really bummed me out a bit because I loved childhood friends to lovers. I just think that's just one of my favourite tropes. And yeah, it annoyed me that I didn't like the ending that much. I just felt like the whole ending was rushed. Considering it's such a big book, it shouldn't have been rushed. So yeah, I wasn't a massive fan. I think I'm just not a massive fan of Callahan either. It's just not a big fan of him. Last book I read this month, I actually finished yesterday, and that is Love Redesigned. So this is Lauren Ash's new book, The Lakefront Billionaires, which is also linked to Dreamland Billionaires, and this book was phenomenal. This book I rated a 5-star, I'm just gonna say it now. I adored it. So Julian and Dahlia are the characters we follow in this book, and the trope is childhood rivals. These two were childhood rivals their whole life, and they're constantly competing with each other for everything, basically. Came close to being childhood lovers, but it's kind of like the spark was there, and then Julian's dad died and he didn't cope well with it and ended up pushing Dahlia away. So this is also a second chance romance, which is one of my favourite tropes, and it was executed perfectly. A few darker topics spoken about in this book, so there is fertility problems, alcohol abuse and depression, so I just want to forewarn you with those ones as well. This one, I also want to say, it's a she fell first but he fell harder, definitely, and the spice was there. Julian and Dahlia meet again after Dahlia comes back to town because she has broken up with her husband. They basically got a divorce, and he's her ex-husband now, and she wants to get away from everything. He and her are they're both very, very successful, very famous people, and she needs to get away from everybody and go back to her quiet little town that she lived in when she was younger. She bumps into Julian, and it is awkward, and they don't quite know how to not make jabs at each other. They're always competitive, always pranking each other, and the dynamic is brilliant. But as we get to know Julian and Dahlia, you see the stuff under the surface. So Dahlia's really struggling with this split from her ex-husband, and she is just so depressed and doesn't know what her life is meant to be anymore because she was so controlled in that relationship. And Julian, we find out so much about how much he really feels for Dahlia and always has loved her and always will. The annotations I did, man, I was in love with this book. I mean, the last page, I just put love hearts all over it because it honestly was everything. Things that he comes across and he goes, I remember when I got this from her, and it's things that he's kept all this time. It's just beautiful to me. The books, I hope you've enjoyed. Tell me what you read down below, and I've done my TBR jar for this month, so go check that out. It's my December TBR jar, and that's picked out my books I'm going to read this month. I'll see you guys next time in another video. Subscribe, like, do all that stuff, and I will see you guys next time.